Hi friends, today we want to talk about worry. I'm really nervous because we've been worried all week about this conversation. Bit of a downer of a topic.
I know, but somebody asked us, and it's something.
It's the human condition.
Yeah.
And she was observing that there are so many things in life, from our own personal circumstances, things happening in our family, in the world around us, to the world at large, that we can get really anxious and worried about. And how do we process that worry? How do we let go of that worry? So I think we can all just start from the premise that worry is legit. We all deal with it, right?
Absolutely.
So as people of faith, obviously we come at it from the perspective of, what does the gospel say? What does the Bible say about worry and cares and anxieties? And we'll get to that in a minute. But we also think it's important that this is a conversation that really anyone ought to be able to identify with and benefit from, because worry is pretty universal.
Yeah, and a lot of our dearest friends don't share our faith, but they do share a lot of these struggles and their desire to process them in meaningful, wholesome ways. So hopefully you all feel included.
I guess the things that I worry about, really, if I kind of just look at them, maybe it's a bit obvious, but they're all things where I am not in control. Where there's a component of the outcome that doesn't depend on me. So I get worried because, how's it going to go down, right? So to get personal for a minute, like, my father is suffering with cancer. He lives in the United States. We live in Australia. We have closed borders at the moment. The future's uncertain. That's a worry, right?
Yep.
And I think it's legitimate to have worries like that. But the key is, what do we do with them, and how do we let them not be something that then defines the way that we relate to the people that we're with?
Or an unchecked worry can actually end up crippling us, or, hampering us from getting on with the love that we need to give at hand.
I guess another thing that we were also wanting to make clear, if it's not already painfully obvious from the way that we come across, is that neither of us has any claim to being any kind of preacher or teacher or anything other than just a couple who are part of a covenanted faith community, and that gives us a lot of support and a lot of collective wisdom
And inspiration.
But really, we're just trying to do our best to be true to our conviction and to our faith, and to live that out. And where we can share that in a way that uplifts others, that's beautiful. That's why we're here.
And it's less about what we have to offer than just to invite you in on our journey.
Sure. So this is a conversation that we're welcoming you into. I guess that's how I want to say it.
Yeah, no, well said.
So if we take it as a given that all of us have worries, then the question is, what do we do with them? I guess at a very simple level, for you and me as husband and wife, when one of us is worried about something, we talk.
Yes. And just the fact of being able to share a worry with somebody you trust is amazingly helpful and freeing.
My mom loves to say, a burden shared is a burden halved, and I think that's a starting point.
Yes.
And there's a great proverb, I think, where it talks about an anxious heart weighs us down, but a cheerful word,
a kind word
lifts us up. And so just the ability of having somebody to talk to is massive. And of course now we have the technology and the ability to talk to people anywhere in the world, or text or whatever you do.
But what I see as a big problem is we have a lot of access to news from across the world, and we see so much suffering and hurt and pain, things that we cannot affect, and those things, or affect in real time, and those things add to our worries that are already there, and can burden, cripple, and weigh us down. What do we do with those worries? And I think that's one of the things our viewer is asking: how do we cope with that on a daily basis?
I mean, that's an excellent observation, because if even just in our lifetime, and we're only in our 40s, such a transition in terms of the material that's just in our face all the time. When we were kids, you had to read the newspaper, and then they started coming online. Now it's on our phones, it's everywhere, and everything that happens is just so immediate. And it's more than just the headlines and the big stories. We get intimate reporting, from all over the world. And on the one hand, it's an amazing way that we connect with people the world over and can enter into whatever they're experiencing, good or bad. But on the other, like you say, it also can just be overwhelming.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think we are designed to absorb that much pain that we actually can't effect change about necessarily. Of course, there are incredible ways that we can reach out, if it's a NGO or something we support or a charity, but so much of the suffering we actually is thousands of miles away from us. And what I found is if I allow that to overwhelm my heart then gets closed off and calcified toward my neighbors because I'm so upset and worried about what other people are going through that I can't fix. And I forget to realize and see what my neighbor's going through.
Yeah. So what are we saying? That there are circles of worry and that we have to decide which ones we're going to make our problem?
Well, my mother used to tell me when I was burdened with worries to visualize giving that worry over to God and letting Him hold it in His hands. And that image of me giving over a worry, whatever it is, from the smallest detail to a heavier, life-threatening kind of worry, not only allows God to do the heavy lifting, but puts my heart in a position of wanting to pray and turn to a higher power and say, I can't lift this, I can't carry it anymore, it's weighing me down. Can you please help me out? And on a personal level, we do that when we share with each other, but then on a more spiritual level, we do that when we give it over to God.
So we were discussing ahead of time, too, the fact that obviously we talk from the perspective of our faith. Can't help it. It's who we are, and we make no apology for that. But at the same time, we have many dear friends that don't share our faith, but certainly share our journey and have very many of the same aspirations and goals for life that we do. So I can't speak, obviously, for what it's like to be in a position such as our friends Jakob and Layla were in. We just talked to them this last week about their refugee story getting out of Iraq. I can't imagine what people in Afghanistan are going through right now. So in a way, it almost feels hypocritical, pharisaical to be sitting here talking about not worrying when you know that if you were in that position, you'd be scared out of your mind.
Right.
And have so many things to worry about. And yet that's where the crux of it comes in, pun intended, that Jesus at the cross said, this stuff belongs to me now, it doesn't belong to you. Give it over to me.
And back to your father, when we speak to him, he's suffering from cancer and has a lot to worry about, you could say, but he says he just has a lot of peace and he gives thanks. Yeah. He says he uses each day to give thanks. And I think when we allow worry to burden us or overwhelm us, we actually become victims of the worry and become, imprisoned in a prison of worry that prevents us from actually loving the people right next to us and being present for them.
In the Sermon on the Mount, which you can read in the Gospel of Matthew, chapters 5 through 7, Jesus speaks right to this. And he says that we can't serve two masters. We can't serve God and mammon. Or, we can't serve God and money, pursuit of wealth.
Yeah.
And he talks about that we shouldn't, gather all these treasures that aren't going to bring us happiness, that we should look at the birds and the flowers for our example, because they don't make their own clothes, they don't plant crops, but the flowers are beautiful in their own right. Solomon, the king, couldn't have asked for any better garments, and the birds are fed, and God provides because he knows that we need all the things of life. And so first of all, I think it's great that Jesus gets right in there and legitimizes worry.
And right after, he talks about stuff. Yeah. I just think there's an incredibly important connection.
And it's within the context of we're living for something bigger than all of this. Mm-hmm. This is not the end game, right? There's a kingdom to be won. There's work to be done in the here and now, looking after each other, caring for one another. I mean, there's some massively clear and challenging instructions in the Sermon on the Mount that ought to turn each of our lives upside down if we really work on applying them. But worry is one of the things that he really hammers home there, that we're not allowed to. We have to just lay that stuff down.
Another great practice that you can try is at the end of the day just to find a space, whether it's watching the sunset or sitting on your back porch or just finding a moment of quiet to just really let go of the things during the day that have built up of worry and
Consciously let them go.
consciously let them go, so that you can start the new day fresh and free. And I have a habit, and I know we live on a property that allows this, so I'm very lucky, of just stepping outside just before the dawn and being there for the moments before and after the sun rises, and just saying welcome to the new day and just letting it start clean and fresh.
I'm told it's nice.
I just hold on to that feeling the rest of the day. Like, or if I start feeling myself getting overwhelmed, I just go back and I'm like, that dawn moment.
I don't want to burst your bubble, but that thing you said about ending the day,
Yeah.
that's nothing that you came up with. Because Jesus actually tells us that each day has enough troubles of its own.
Yep.
Don't drag them around with you.
Yes.
So
yep.
that's how we're supposed to. That's how we're supposed to live, and we need to help each other to do that.
And the birds, the flowers, and children, like Jesus said, they don't worry. They just live freely from day to day.
Okay, so a quick recap of some of the things that we've talked about that might be helpful. One, acknowledge that worries are real. Mm-hmm. If you have the ability to talk them through with somebody that you love and trust and who's willing to listen, do that. I guess if you don't, you could even just spend
Write
time
it
yourself
down or-
acknowledging your worries. Write them down,
Acknowledge
scrumple the
them.
paper up, throw them away, whatever
Yeah.
you got to do. Okay, so acknowledging worries, not getting overwhelmed by the magnitude of things in this world that we could worry about. So trying to scale what we think are things that we ought to be worried about. Most of us, the best we can do for people in faraway places where there's conflict, we can carry them in prayer. That's something we can always do. Thirdly,
My best tactic for when I'm feeling worried and overwhelmed is to find somebody to love. And service is just a great antidote to getting overwhelmed by things that we can't control, because that's something we can control, is finding the person who's doing it more tough than we are and lifting them up and helping them out.
yeah. And then finally, being intentional about how we go into a new day and how we end a day, remembering that the Psalm tells us to lift our eyes to the hills and that our help comes from the maker of the hills. We won't find the strength to overcome worries in ourselves, but we can support each other, and we can also put our trust and faith in the good God above. So that's our encouragement to all of you, dear friends, this week. Thank you for continuing to support in the comments. We love it. Keep them coming.
Questions are
And,
great.
Yeah, we welcome that. So please stay safe and well, and we will catch up very soon.
Talk soon. Here's to...
Why worry? There should be laughter after pain. There should be sunshine after rain. These things have always been the same. So why worry now? Why worry now?
I was thinking of that song all afternoon.